Okay, so Sonic Frontiers just came out, and I, like many others, had the chance to play it. So it came out about 3 weeks ago from today, and I got a chance to beat it in about 3 days, so not a long game. But I do want to talk about it because there is a lot to unpack, and I thought this might be fun to do. So I'm doing it. So I want to talk about first the initial hype around the game, right? Because the Sonic Frontiers initial reveal trailer came out about a year ago, I think, maybe longer than that. I didn't really keep track of time when it came to this game, for reasons that I will explain. So, over the past few years, I'd say about 5, 6, 7, arguably 8, arguably the last decade, honestly, Sonic games have been nothing but just disappointment. So, there was a lot riding on this game, especially because we were in the around the time the initial gameplay trailer came out, we were in like the Sonic Renaissance, quote unquote, that's what people say, where we were actually starting to get good media from Sonic. We had the Sonic 2 movie come out, which was amazing. Honestly, one of my best movie experiences in the last 3 years. No joke. The Sonic Prime TV show that was announced. What else? The Knuckles spin-off show for the Sonic movie. So we were getting a lot of good Sonic content around the time that this gameplay trailer came out. But, of course, Sonic is a game franchise, right? So we needed that game to really break us out, to really seal the deal on it being the Sonic Renaissance. So Sonic Frontiers had a lot riding on it. So basically the question is, did it do well? Did it actually succeed in what it wanted it to do? So yes and no. And yes, that's a cliche answer, but they succeeded in a lot of areas. It's a step forward that we'll get into. But there are obvious flaws with the game that I did not enjoy when I was playing the game. So I kind of want to just go through that and talk about my experience with the game in a linear fashion. Just for the sake of time, let's just get into it because I don't want to spend too much time on the intro. So yeah, let's talk about Sonic Frontiers, my thoughts of Sonic Frontiers. Okay, so before I get into the meat of the game, I do want to say that this is a spoiler warning. For the game, I am going to talk about everything, story. I will be spoiling it. So if you have not played the game, then I would suggest not watching this video. But anyway, I want to go through this game in a linear fashion, so that way it explains my experience as I was playing the game, instead of just, categorizing, going over the gameplay, going over the story. So I want to go through the entire game as I play through it. So the first thing that you're going to notice, like, if you played Sonic games for a long time, you're going to notice the direction of Sonic's voice. So when I heard it for the first time, I was definitely taken back. Like, it's this deep tone that he's going for, Roger, the voice actor for Sonic. And it's very jarring at first. Like, I was definitely taken back. I was like, oh, okay, like, he sounds like a human, like, because we're used to that high-pitched, cool Sonic voice, that kind of, like, annoying Sonic voice. So I didn't really mind the change, but it was definitely jarring. But eventually over the game, I got used to it. I don't know if that's like Roger regressing back to his original Sonic voice, or I just got used to it. It might be both, but I can say that you definitely get used to it, or at least I got used to it over the course of the game. So not too distracting.
I think I'll go check them out, and maybe save some aliens.
You tracked the Chaos Emeralds here, right? Let's find out what drew them here.
Okay, so here I actually want to start talking about the game itself. So Sonic crashes on Kronos Island, the first island of 5 that you get to play on in the game. And I think that this is a great starting island. It's clear what the objective is. It's not too big where a player can get lost and frustrated, unlike certain islands that we will talk about. So first thing to note is that this game is a collect-athon, like through and through. You gotta collect memory tokens, portal gears, vault keys to unlock Chaos Emeralds, and then ultimately collect the Chaos Emeralds. So you're collecting a lot of things to collect more items. So if you don't like collect-athons, then you probably will not like this game at all. But me, I like collect-athons, so I didn't think that this was a bad thing. In Sonic games, we've collected like red rings, rings in general, Chow, missing animals, stuff like that. So it's not anything out of the extreme or ordinary for a Sonic game to do. So I didn't mind this at all. Alright, so now I want to talk about the open zone kind of style, because it happens in all of these islands. Basically, the open zone concept was that it's not exactly an open world. You'll have like these mini gauntlets of classic Sonic assets that you'll go through for like maybe 8 to like 20 seconds, and then at the end of it, you'll get a collectible to progress the story. So it's like mini Sonic levels, like bite-sized Sonic levels, just scattered throughout the entire world. And it's actually a formula that worked for me, because I actually, like, you'll go on this gauntlet, right? And then immediately, once you get off the gauntlet, you'll see another gauntlet. So it's like, there's a definite flow that they have going for this game. So when you get off of a gauntlet, you'll see another one. Get off of that, you go to another one. Sometimes you gotta, like, figure out a way. You gotta break some boxes, revealing a spring, stuff like that. So it worked for me. So of course I had to talk about the graphical issues, because it's glaring, like in the first island. Usually the first, section of the game, of any game, is where they put the most polish in, but these graphical issues definitely are prominent throughout the entire game. So I'll go over the ones that actually stood out to me. Stuff that you probably heard before, but the pop-in, that's number one. The pop-in is definitely distracting. Well, let me say this. I have a high tolerance for this kind of stuff. I don't really mind pop-in in my games. It's not gonna take away from the immersion. If it was a different type of game, maybe it would. If I'm expecting like a high, hyper-realistic game like The Last of Us, something like that, then I could see the pop-in, actually distracting me. But as far as Sonic games go, that's not something that I really care for. I don't really care for like total immersion in these kind of games. So it didn't really affect me like it did others, but I can definitely see how it could get annoying. Another issue that I found like immediately was the island is serene, right? You got rainfall. Sometimes I just want to take a stroll, strolling as Sonic. And immediately what I found was that sometimes the grass blades just hinder your movement. Like, he can't walk through grass for some reason. I don't know why. So I just never walked in the game. Sometimes I just wanted to take my time, look at the scenery. I don't know why the grass is like a solid wall in this game, but it is. And once I saw that, I was just like, alright, Sonic's supposed to run anyway. Let me just run. Never really had the issue again. So, but it isn't worth noting. And then another issue, I think this is the last issue that I experienced in the game, still on the same island, the first island, was that you get this boost, and sometimes Sonic will just trip over a rock, like a pebble on the floor or anything, and he'll go flying, and you can't change the direction when you're in the air. So you're just going flying, and you're like, okay, well, I didn't want to go this way, but I guess I will. I mean, again, it didn't really bother me a lot, because it didn't happen so frequently where I was like, okay, this game is unplayable, But it was there, and it was annoying when it happened, so it is worth noting. Okay, so, again, in general, the open zone worked for me. I did have a problem, though, later on in the game, where this kind of became stale, right? Of course I like collect-athons, like I said, but there's a rinse and repeat formula that's glaring that definitely made me feel like I was doing chores, right? Like, when I got to like the third island, I was like, okay, I really don't want to collect memory tokens again. So you have to collect these memory tokens and do all these collecting in every island that you go to. So it's basically the same throughout the entire game. So by the third island, I was like, all right, you know, this is kind of getting annoying. You know, I kind of don't want to search for these medals. So that is worth noting as well. I think that this game could totally use some variety when it came to the way to get memory tokens, and I think they could dial back on the amount of collectibles that you need, because like I said before, you're collecting memory tokens to get cutscenes, you're collecting portal gears to go into cyberspace to then get vault keys to unlock the Chaos Emerald. So it's a lot of collecting to collect, if that makes sense. So if they had less collectibles, I think they would have room for a lot of variety with the way that you get these memory tokens. And I think that the fatigue later on would definitely cease. A lot like Mario Odyssey. I see a lot of people comparing this game to Mario Odyssey, and it's true, it is exactly like that. Very similar, I should say. But in Mario Odyssey, you know, you're not just jumping up on mystery blocks to get moon medals, you know, or moons. Sorry, that's a Sonic coming out of me. To get moons, you know, you're interacting with things, playing different mini games, discovering things, you know, exploring the world that you're in to get these moons. Whereas in Sonic Frontiers, you're kind of doing the exact same thing, grinding on rails, going on springs, hit these balloons to go higher, lightspeed dash. You're kind of doing all of that like repeatedly. So that's where it gets kind of stale. Okay, so speaking of variety, I don't want to say that there wasn't any variety in the game, because there is variety in the game. There are different things that you have to play, like mini games and such. The one that I want to speak on is cyberspace, which is a big chunk of the game, I would say, story-wise and gameplay-wise. So you go in cyberspace and you collect these vault keys from them when you beat them, which unlock the Chaos Emerald. So they're kind of essential for beating the game, for progressing in the game. So I do want to say, I was one of the people that didn't really watch trailers just to save myself some surprise. So I think I watched the initial teaser trailer, I watched the first gameplay trailer from IGN, and I tried to stave off of any other content just so I can so I have some surprise. So when I saw cyberspace, I knew that the level design took assets from previous Sonic games. And I'm bringing this up because it's like a big debate in the Sonic community about how Sonic games in the past have really been relying on nostalgia, like nostalgia bait almost, to bring in more players. The problem with that, obviously, is that the more you reuse these assets, the more you shove it in our face, we're not gonna like it at some point. You know, it's not gonna have nostalgia anymore if we just saw the same level like a year ago. So I saw that there was Green Hill Zone, Chemical Plant, Sky Sanctuary. Those zones were reused, and I thought that they were maybe one stage each, and that every other cyberspace level would be like a different asset, you know, from different games. You know, for example, I thought that maybe there'd be like a Haunted Mansion themed cyberspace level that had like haunted theme, you know, it's haunted theme. Oh, how naive I was, because this game decided to reuse, not only reuse the reused assets, but they decided to reuse the reused assets. And what I mean by that is that there's only Green Hill, Chemical Plant, Sky Sanctuary, and that city zone. That's all you're getting. So you're not gonna get you're not gonna get any variety with the level design, or the level aesthetics, I should say. So that was a huge letdown for me. Like, I really thought that all the cyberspace levels would be different in look. And then it got to a point in the game where I was like guessing on which which level I would be playing through. I'd be like, oh, Green Hill. I love Green Hill Zone, man. Love me some Chemical Plant. Can't get enough of it. So that was just very disappointing. So going on about cyberspace, Sonic's controls, for some reason, completely change. I don't want to say completely, but they change drastic enough where it doesn't feel right. You know, you've been playing as Sonic going fast through this open world, and you get to cyberspace, and for some reason, it just doesn't feel like Sonic is going fast. You hit that boost button, but there's something to be desired there in the speed. And the jumping, oh man, the jumping is terrible in cyberspace. Terrible. I mean, it feels like Sonic is rotating on an axis that's outside of himself, but it just doesn't feel good turning with him. So it makes going back for like red rings you may have missed just so tedious. I think the adventure games got this so right. I don't know why they ever tried to change it, but I like that floatiness of like the adventure games. Like, you can jump and you can hold it for a while before landing. It really makes you feel like you got control of Sonic. And in this game, it's just not there. It's just not there. Another thing to note in this game is that homing attacks, if you thought that Sonic didn't move fast enough just by boosting, don't homing attack. I'm telling you right now, this homing attack is so bad. I don't know why it's this bad, because I'm saying it's bad because it kills your momentum completely. Oh, I said the forbidden word, momentum. Oh, I said it again. Anyway, but yeah, it completely kills you, like stops all speed in your tracks, and you're just hovering there for the next thing to lock on to. It's like why do I even homing attack? Like, I stopped homing attacking in a Sonic game because I just wanted to go fast. That's ridiculous, right? Like, it's ridiculous to say. So I just avoided that. Another thing is the ranking system of the stages. So it's a little different than tradition. Usually you get a bunch of score by collecting rings, destroying enemies, doing tricks, stuff like that in traditional Sonic games. Traditional 3D Sonic games, I should say. And then you reach the end of the goal and then you get graded on how you did. In this, it's a little different. So there's 4 main objectives. So the 4 being collecting a certain amount of rings, finding all the red rings, reaching the goal, and then reaching the goal in S rank time. So those are 4 main objectives, and you get vault keys for each objective that you complete. So in my experience, there was quite a handful of these stages where you can clear all 4 without really trying too hard. Red rings are usually in the places that you go, like higher paths, or just literally right in front of you. And there's a big abundance of rings, so you're never gonna really struggle with getting that ring objective. So the S rank is where it gets nuanced. We could talk about the ranking system all day, but it kind of brings in that same old where the S ranks are just a little too easy to acquire, right? I feel like they took a player that never played the game before. They said, all right, here you go, beat it. And they jotted down that time, and they're like, okay, well, this is going to be the standard of the S ranks. And it just doesn't feel good to get S ranks. It just feels like, all right, well, that was easy. See you later, and on to the next one. So yeah, didn't really have much of a problem getting S ranks. I will talk a little bit about the one stage that does stick out, which is the second cyberspace stage of the game. And it's actually important to talk about this too, because it kind of creates... they didn't do this intentionally. I'm sorry for bagging on this. It's not really a flaw of the game itself. But when I played the second cyberspace stage and I saw how cutthroat the S rank timing was. So I should say, yes, the second cyberspace stage is like infamous because that S rank time is so hard to get. You really got to master Sonic's controls. And that's good. That's a good thing. I think a lot of people actually want that kind of S rank system where it doesn't feel like they just hand it out to you. But it kind of, as I was playing the game, it kind of made me think that a lot of the cyberspace stages were going to be like that, and that I would have to go back and get those S ranks. Of course, you know, the rest of the stages are pretty easy. So that is one thing to note. So as I was playing, I thought that, you know, they were going to be hard, but it turns out that they weren't. Okay, and I don't want to leave on like a bad note with cyberspace. I did enjoy my time with cyberspace. I did like going through the levels in traditional 3D modern Sonic esque form. So I did enjoy it. I'm not gonna say that it was boring or I didn't look forward to it, because I did, regardless of the glaring issues with it. But I will say that the later stages in the game are definitely where the cyberspace levels shine, because a lot of reuse. I'm gonna sound like I'm being a hypocrite here, because I was just bagging on reuse assets, right? Some of the later cyberspace levels take a lot of actual gameplay design from other Sonic games. So it was cool because I got to see like some of my favorite stages return, like Metal Harbor, Green Forest. That drifting one actually reminded me a lot of Sonic R. It was really cool to see some of these games return. So I was disappointed with the aesthetics, and I wish that if they were just going to reuse these gameplay assets, that they just reused the aesthetic assets as well. I wish that they did that. It would have made it so much better, so much more diverse, I guess. But of course, you know, that didn't really happen. But needless to say, it was cool to see those stages return. I was looking forward to going back to cyberspace just to see which stage I would recognize next, so that was nice. And again, I'm indifferent with the whole debate of the reused assets, but I will say that was a pretty nice touch. There always will be debate when you reuse assets. It's not something that you can avoid if you do it. So honestly, at this point, Sega Team has just gotta decide if they want to keep reusing assets and keep having these fans, you know, debate over what's right and what's wrong, or they make everybody happy and just make new levels. Crazy, right? I know.
I'm hanging on to the other side. I won't give up till the end of me.
Okay, so moving on. After you collect all the vault keys from cyberspace and around the world, you get to collect the Chaos Emeralds. So once you're done collecting all the Chaos Emeralds, then you move on to a boss fight, a Titan boss fight. So there are these enemies around the world. They're kind of robotic, like futuristic tech. At the end, you have to defeat one that Sonic can't defeat with his own power. He has to use the Chaos Emeralds for them. And these things are massive. They're huge. And while I was playing, I was like, okay, this is going to be hype. Like, I'm ready to go Supersonic. I already knew that Supersonic was in the game at this point, so I was ready to actually experience it. But, bro, when I tell you, I was not ready for what was about to happen as Supersonic. Supersonic has gotten a bad rap in the past. Like, he's just been an extra once you collect a lot of things in the game, and you just go through a modern Sonic stage as Supersonic. But bro, when I went Supersonic to fight these Titans, man, the music, the gameplay, flying around as Supersonic around this whole island you just explored, going crazy fast, reflecting all these attacks that the enemies do, it was nuts. The soundtrack, bro, the soundtrack went stupid. Heavy metal playing as Supersonic just battles these Titans. It was so fire. I don't even care. The best part of the game, no doubt. No doubt. I don't even know what's like. I was playing the I think the later couple of big boss fights, big Titan boss fights, were the most hype moments of Sonic's history. Like Supersonic taking Wyvern and just throwing him across, like slamming him into a mountain. Him taking that big sword, just slicing right through, bro. When I tell you, I was off my seat, bro. I could not get enough of this. This needs to come back. There's literally nothing else to say. It was fire. Best part of the game. Moving on. Okay, so I mentioned before that I was invested in the story like pretty much immediately starting the game up, but I wasn't as invested as I was about to be when I went to the second island. So let's talk more about the story. So after the first Titan, I believe it's after the first Titan, I'm not sure if it's somewhat in the second island, that this happens, but you start to get flashbacks. Supersonic starts to get flashbacks, or Sonic starts to get flashbacks. And he's looking at these flashbacks, and you see a familiar face. You see the Chaos Creatures. And as soon as I saw that, I knew my adventure fanboys were going crazy. Because when I saw that, I was like, alright, what is going on here? Like, what? Because there were so many questions that we didn't know from the adventure titles. Who is Chaos? Where did he come from? And I was thinking that this is the game that is going to let us know what the answers to those questions were. So I was fully invested in the story at this point, and this is only the second island. So I was having a really good time with this game, between the open zone, collecting, cyberspace. So I was having a really good time, enjoying myself. And when I saw the Chaos Creatures, from my understanding, I thought that the Chow had something to do with it, but when you see the Chaos Creatures, they have the Coco in them, and the Coco are the natives, if you would, of these Starfall Islands. And you see that the Chaos Creatures have the Coco as like hearts. So I was wondering what was the correlation between the Chow and the Coco, and what even is the deal behind the Chaos Creatures in general. So again, the story had me. Like, I was fully in it. So were my questions answered? Stick around to find out. Okay, so we'll get into the end game later, but I want to describe my experience linearly. So the next island is a desert island. Not too much to say about it. For the sake of time, I just won't go into too much detail about it. There's nothing really to talk about, except it's just another island. Same gameplay as first, and I mentioned before that it gets fatiguing to play the same thing over again. It's like, get the memory tokens, get the vault keys, go supersonic, then rinse and repeat. You gotta do it all over again. So it definitely gets tiring. But there are a few things to talk about on Sand Island. One is the cutscenes. Alright, so there's been controversy with the amount, or lack thereof, of fluidity when it comes to cutscenes pertaining like expression and movement. So like in previous Sonic games, you know, these characters, they just move like animatronics. Like, they just don't look real, you know? It doesn't look like something... It doesn't look like they're actually moving the way that they should be. And that's been prevalent in a lot of Sonic games in the past. Some due to age, but some having no real excuse at all, like the modern titles. The thing that took a massive step up was the expressiveness of the characters. And the dialogue, too. So the dialogue is not this corny, just weird, cringy, Sonic, douchey attitude. Like, you'll get those weird, like, awkward sentences, but it's dialed back, like, a lot. Like, a whole turn. And the expression, you could really see what these characters are thinking without them talking, and that is big for storytelling. We don't want to not know what Sonic is feeling at that time, right? Or any character in general. I think the expressiveness of like the animations that they do in the game with expressiveness have taken a massive step up, and I want to see this continue in the next Sonic games. I will even say that the character development, well, I say character development loosely because there's not like these crazy arcs that these characters go through, or any real character arc actually, for that matter, because we don't get that in the game. But what I mean by that is, I think that Sonic Team has realized who these characters are, and I think a lot of that fortune has come from the Sonic 2 movie, or the Sonic movie in general. Like, I'll explain what I mean by that. So over the course of these games, the characters have regressed in personalities from their debuts so much. Knuckles, for example, has been this respected warrior with a rivalry with Sonic, who does not take anything from anybody. But for some reason, I think Sonic Team just needed comedic relief, and that's what they turned him into. They turned into this big, dumb, not knowing what's going on type of character, and the Sonic team, the Sonic community, has really felt that impact. You know, we don't want these characters to be these pseudo versions of themselves. So that's what I mean by character development. Because they actually try to return these characters to their roots. Knuckles becomes this rival with Sonic again, and he has this responsibility. You sense the duty in him to actually, you know, protect. And the same goes with Amy. You know, she's a loving person, and she's not completely obsessed over Sonic. You know, of course she likes him, but I don't even think there was one real mention of love between Sonic and Amy. And Sonic fans will know that that's out of the ordinary. When Amy is on that screen, you can bet, I'd bet my life on it, that she's gonna make some sort of move on Sonic, or say something that leads you to believe that, you know, she's in love with him. And, you know, she's become this character where that's all she is, you know. And it's really good to see these characters actually return to form. And I'm going to be saying that a lot when I describe these characters. And that's like no doubt to Ian Flynn's writing, no doubt. Because these characters fell so far from what they once were, and returning to form is what we've wanted. So I will say it does feel a little forced because of just how far they have fallen, and just going right back to you know, how they were before is kind of jarring. But honestly, if they need to just cold turkey it and just rush it and just not even try to forget the past and just not look back, then honestly, I'm not complaining about it. I just want to see these characters actually shine, actually be who they were from the beginning. Also, there are a lot of Sonic references to previous games for long-time Sonic fans like myself to enjoy. And again, it is a little forced. It's like, you know, hey, remember this, you know, hey, remember this when we did this and when we went there. But I feel like the main takeaway shouldn't be the forcing of it or like the fan service of it, right? I feel like the main takeaway should be that they're acknowledging the past of Sonic. It provides like this cohesiveness of the narrative. They're not just forgetting about what the bad times and the good times. They acknowledge it, right? So I think that should be the main takeaway. The second thing to mention is the combat in the game. So a lot of people's experience with the combat is different. In my experience, the combat was not a highlight of the game. So at this point, well, actually I should say, in the first island, it was really just the homing attack. You get a couple moves here and there, but nothing too fancy. In the second island, you're gonna unlock most of your skill tree. So yes, Sonic does have a skill tree. He uses skill points that he acquires by defeating enemies, and he uses those skill points to gain new moves. So again, like I said, at this point I pretty much had all the skills. So progressing didn't feel too in-depth, I should say. And even disregarding the progression of this skill tree, the biggest issue for me was that I felt like the skills were inconsequential. I didn't feel like they were something that you needed or provided a big advantage to take down some of these enemies. I thought that the homing attack and the side loop were pretty much all I needed. And the only reason I really used different moves was just so that it didn't feel stale. You know, it didn't feel like I was just homing attacking and side looping. So that's kind of, I think I don't want to say failed. I feel like that's being too harsh, but I say that there's definitely room for improvement if I'm feeling like, you know, most of these moves that you implemented in the game don't even matter. So I was a little disappointed there. Didn't really get much out of the combat. I mean, it's a Sonic game, you know. I didn't expect it. Maybe it's not an excuse to say, oh, it's just a Sonic game, so don't expect great things from it. Maybe it's not an excuse to say that. But what I'm saying is that even though it was a disappointment, it is what it is. I'm not really too mad about it, is what I'm saying. Alright, so moving on. I'm gonna talk about the next 3 islands in like rapid fire, just to save time. Alright, so this is gonna be a hot take, like no doubt. My favorite island was the 3rd island. That's actually where I had the most fun with the open zone style. And I say that because a majority of the mini gauntlets that you play are in 2D. And I know that there's a lot of controversy as well around Modern Sonic being in 2D, but these stages actually worked for me. These little segments actually worked for me. It just felt cool knowing I was in like a 3D environment, but the 2D angle was there, like keeping me in. I don't know, it felt good to play. I really don't know how else to describe it. I had the most fun there. I will say that there is kind of an overlook when it comes to the 2D angle, because the game kind of locks you into these segments. So if you get into a 2D segment, you're not going to get out until you complete the challenge at the end. So that is kind of a bummer. It kind of kills the game if you're stuck in a spot that you don't want to be in. So I definitely understand that. That happened to me a few times and it was annoying. So, but the mini gauntlets take like a few seconds to complete, so it wasn't the biggest deal in the world. It is worth noting. I can see the argument that is annoying. The 3rd area is the biggest for sure. So it's like an archipelago, and it was very annoying to find or get across each mini island, because I believe there's only one entrance point for all these mini islands. And it is very, very difficult to find these little sections where you can get across. I think there definitely should have been a lot of ways to get to the multiple islands that are on this one giant island, because I found myself getting lost. And I know I said I had the most fun with this level, because for me the 2D sections and the mini gauntlets kind of overshadowed this issue for me, because I was able to find my way across. It didn't take too long, but it was just very annoying that I was like, okay, I'm looking at my map, but I still can't figure out where I'm supposed to go. So it is really tedious. Last thing to mention on this island is Tails. So I previously mentioned that a lot of these Sonic characters, I've gotten it super bad with the character regression, and Tails might be the worst offender in this case. This guy has been a decorated hero in Sonic Adventure. He saves Station Square from a missile. He realizes that he does not need Sonic to guide him. He is his own person. He is his own hero. And in the most recent games, he gets scared out of everything, always calling out, Sonic, Sonic, help me. And it's like, oh, like what did they do to you? They massacre my boy, like. But in this game, you'll see even more of the development, like I was previously talking about, where he acknowledges that he's been this wildly inconsistent character. And that to me was like Sonic Team saying, you know, we hear you. We know how Tails is. We know that you guys feel like, or rather that we know that we messed up on him, and we're working to fix it. So that's what I took away of that. When I heard, when he said, because Tails self-describes himself as wildly inconsistent, that's what I took away from it. And it was nice hearing that reassurance that maybe these characters are gonna start getting back on track. So I was very, very happy to see that. Okay, moving on again to the 4th island. Okay, so this 4th island plays different than the rest of them. So in the previous islands, you go around in the open zone, again, going through all these mini sections with Sonic, trying to get the memory tokens. In this island, there's 7 towers, and each tower is like its fully formed gauntlet. It is a gauntlet of things that you have been doing for the past 3 islands. And I actually really, really like this island. I remember getting nervous and like anxious, like as I reached it, because these towers are huge. So I was getting nervous when I started reaching the top of the towers because I was like, all right, one bad move and I have to restart this all over again. And I liked that. I liked that feeling. So I had a ton of fun scaling those towers. Instead of finding memory tokens, you unlock more pieces of the story. So you're rewarded for completing these massive gauntlets, and it worked perfectly for me. I really enjoyed it. But the problem that I faced is not with the island itself, but it's with the story pieces that I got. So I was already invested in the story, like I said. I wanted to know a lot of things. What are the Coco in relation to the Chow? Where do these chaos creatures come from? And although I did get one of those answers, we find out that the chaos creatures are actually an alien race that don't come from Sonic's planet. They don't originate there. But the more pieces that I saw, I just had more questions. So they tell you that the Chaos Emeralds aren't native to Sonic's world. So that was already mind-blowing. I never really thought that could be the case, just because we've been so used to seeing the Chaos Emeralds in Sonic's world, you know? So we do find that out, but we don't really find out where they come from. We don't really find out how they came to be. And the question that stood out to me the most comes from the revelation that the Master Emerald was on Sonic's planet. So the Master Emerald is on Sonic's planet, but the Chaos Emeralds are alien. So I didn't understand how they related to each other, or how one was in the same place or a different place than the other. So I didn't really get an answer to that either as I played the game. So I didn't even know what to say. I'm gonna have to die with these questions. I hope that I don't have to. I hope that's not the case. I hope this ages poorly, or the next game we actually get those answers. But when I beat the game, I was just disappointed because we didn't get those answers. And I'm mentioning it here on the 4th island because we get, like, I'd say like 50 or 60% of the story just from these flashbacks. If I'm missing something, then, you know, then please someone correct me, but it just left me with more questions. That's really what you can take away from what I'm saying. The more I saw the story, the more I was invested, and the more I wanted to get a resolution, but that resolution never came, and I just ended up having more questions than I started with. So maybe that's not the fault of the game, right? If they plan to make a Sonic Frontiers 2, which it looks like they will be doing because of all the positive feedback that they've been getting from the game, then you know, that's not the fault of the game. It was just my expectation was that that it would be a self-contained story. That I'd get all these answers by the end, and I'd get a satisfying resolution. So I guess I just have to wait and see what happens with that. Okay, moving on to the final island. Again, not much to talk about here. It's exactly the same as the others, just memory tokens, vault keys, the same old stuff. So instead of talking about the island, I want to talk about Sage. So in general, I'd say that Sage didn't really do it for me. So she's a reformed antagonist of the game, which was pretty predictable from the start. I got the sense that she'd start as a force against Sonic, but later would come to join him. So we find out that she's an AI that got intelligent or more powerful through the mystical energy of cyberspace. And that Eggman actually kind of views her as his daughter, which for me was weird. Like, it was just not even out of the blue, more like it's not easy to sell that to me because of how Eggman has been depicted in previous games, where he just doesn't care about people, you know. He looked up to his grandfather, but nothing really of substance, I should say, in the caring department, if you would. So it was kind of weird, and just, I don't know, it just didn't grip me like I wanted it to. Also, he's kind of mean to her. He's kind of mean to her in the beginning. You know, he's demanding things, demanding her to get him out of cyberspace. Actually, I have to mention it here, but Sage does eventually sacrifice herself at the end of the game. And it was like, in the beginning of the story, it was Eggman being cold to her, and they realized that in order for Sage's sacrifice to actually carry some sort of weight, that they needed Eggman to kind of feel like he lost someone, like an actual person he cares about. So towards the later section of the game, he starts warming up to her, you know, saying that he's proud of her and fatherly things like that. But I just think it needed more time in the oven. I just really didn't buy it, and by the end of Sage's sacrifice, I didn't really feel much. And it's funny because like at the end of the game, the sacrifice is supposed to mean a lot, and they start playing this super somber music like, Father, oh, I'm so sorry, thank you. And it just was cringy in a way. Like, I just didn't vibe, like I didn't feel like it deserved that, if that makes sense. Okay, so getting near the end of the video, the climax of the game is what we have to talk about. So I've been enjoying my time with the game at this point, and I'm ready to see the resolution. I don't know it just yet. So in my mind, I'm thinking, you know, at this point in the story, I'm thinking there might be a tribe that destroyed this chaos creatures, because we see that in the flashbacks. We see destruction that this mysterious force has brought to these aliens, these chaos aliens, and they had to relocate to Sonic's home planet. So that's how we know that's how they got there. So in my mind, I'm thinking, you know, there's got to be like a tribe other than the Echidnas or even the like Longclaws tribe, right? There's got to be a second or a third tribe that really wanted the power of the Chaos Emeralds, or coveted something that the Chaos creatures had, where they would literally chase them down to destroy them. But nothing could prepare me for the face reveal of the true antagonist of the game. So you hear the voice of the true antagonist from the game right from the very beginning. When Sonic lands on the first island, you hear a voice, oh, Sonic, you are the key. You are the key to what? I don't know. Still don't know. Maybe that was answered. I missed that part. But you hear that voice, and you know, right from the bat, you know this is the villain. You know, come on, we've played BioShock before. We don't trust people that talk to us from a distance. We don't trust people that don't reveal their faces to us or interact with us. So it was very predictable. Like, it's very predictable that was the antagonist, so no surprises there. But again, going back to the face reveal of what this force could possibly be, it was a giant sentient moon. Bro, like I wish I captured my face when I played it. Like, just the audacity that they had to do this to me. I thought this was gonna be good. Why did we have to fumble it in the end so terribly? And the game like tricked me into thinking it was gonna be good at the end. And the thing is, you go Supersonic and you don't even play as Supersonic. I don't know why they did this. Why would they not choose the best part of the entire game to be the final battle? What you do instead is you play Galaga. Galaga is what you do. You play this stupid mini game as the final boss. This unstoppable force you play Galaga to beat. Like, bro, oh my gosh, I can't even describe what I was feeling during that. So, yeah, it was very much a disappointment. They named the moon the End, bro. Like, you can't get any more whack than that. I'm sorry, but that is so stupid. Like, who is naming these creatures? Like, we got Shark, we got Tower, we got the End, bro. Like, I swear, like, a middle schooler could do better names with this. Anyway, the game itself, the mini game that you play itself with the final boss, actually is somewhat difficult. I know I've been seeing a lot of people say that, you know, it's easy, that they didn't have a lot of health, but it took a while. I felt like it took a while for me to get the health bar down. Maybe because I died a couple times. But when you're shooting the moon, the health bar doesn't go down very fast. It's very slow, very slow. It's like a gradual loading bar. So it was intense in that sense, where it was a long time. It took a long time to beat it for me personally. But it wasn't fun. It wasn't a fun thing to do. So it was just a challenge without the fun. So it was very, very mundane, very big disappointment. Probably the biggest letdown in the entire game. I don't know why they did this, and I will never know why. I don't know if they were just tired from this game. Whatever it was, whatever the case, it is what it is. But yeah, don't expect an epic climax to this story, to this super intriguing story, no less. Anyway, so I think I said enough, but some miscellaneous stuff I should mention before we do end. I think it would be an absolute disservice to end the video without mentioning the music. This music is so good. Like, Sonic games have always been known for some of the best music in any video game franchise. We all know that. But I think the versatility and the variety of these music tracks that they chose are so good, and they stand out amongst the rest of the Sonic games because they incorporate heavy metal music, right? You can go from heavy metal music to lo-fi to piano music, just relaxing piano music and ambiance, and it works well in every single place that they put these tracks. And speaking of the lo-fi, I gotta mention Big's Fishing. I gotta mention it. So there's a portal that you can go through that transports you to Big's fishing hole. Big is in the game, yes. Froggy is not, however, unfortunate. But you can fish with the purple coins that you do collect, another collectible, and that can give you different things that you can use to progress the game, like health seeds that you collect as well, defense seeds. You even get vault keys, memory tokens there. So it definitely helps you progress the game if you start feeling that fatigue. I only went to Big's Fishing. I think I went to Big's Fishing the last island, and I was like, why have I not been doing this the entire time? Like, I was kicking myself for that because it was such a good experience, and it would have progressed the game a lot quicker and been more fun for me if I did. So definitely do not skip out on Big's Fishing. And I just love the stupidly realistic things that you fish out of the lake. In Sonic's world, it just looks so weird when Sonic's like next to like this realistic crocodile when Vector is in this universe, and like it's so funny. I just really like it. It definitely has a charm to it. The lo-fi while fishing, so fire. I was just having such a good time with it. I wish it didn't have to interrupt the lo-fi every time you caught a fish with that jingle. I really wish it just played like a lo-fi jingle to complement the lo-fi that's already playing. But that's just a small complaint. But it was just super enjoyable. Yeah, that's it. Alright, so wrapping up the video, I'm going to start by giving Sonic Frontiers 6.5 out of 10. I think that's pretty fair. I think it's a little higher for long-time Sonic fans. I'm glad I took 3 weeks to actually form my opinions. I don't see it as something that's going to change your world, right? It is a huge step forward in the direction that I want to see Sonic go, right? I would love to see the open zone return, right? In a different way. Maybe I see a lot of people, and myself included, I'm on this, where they want the level design to be incorporated in the landscape. And you don't want a bunch of floating rails everywhere. So they have that formula. They have the formula. Now it's just up to them. You can't cheap out on these things anymore, right? They gotta take their time. I'm saying it like I'm a game developer, but as a person who really enjoys these games, Sonic games, and the Sonic character, I really want to see them do well. But I'm glad to say, I'm very glad to say, at the end of the day, we did get a good Sonic game, right? So, it's like, there's a W there, right? You know, we got a good Sonic game during the Sonic Renaissance, right when we needed it the most. So yeah, it's pretty safe to say that we are in the Sonic Renaissance, and I'm excited to see what the franchise has going for it next. But that's gonna wrap it up. I'll probably make a lot more videos because this is actually fun to do. Later in the future, I'll probably do some ranked, some tier lists. That looks really fun. I definitely got some opinions to share, but let me know what you thought in the comments. Reach out to me. Like the video if you liked it. All that YouTuber stuff, and hopefully I'll make another video, and I'll see you there.